If you feel like you are losing your grip, might suffer a trip or abandon ship, open a can of whatever you sip and join the fellowship.
Hello there, and welcome to the Fellowship at the Ring Pool. I'm speaking to you from Covent Garden this week, down in London. Just a bit of family business, but my pledge is to never, ever miss a podcast blether with friends and colleagues and fellow music makers, because it's wonderful to get together and not feel alone. Particularly this week, I wasn't a mad Ozzy Osbourne fan, but I'm familiar with his impact on the music scene within this business. I have a funny story about the Osbournes, which I've told many times on this channel. I don't think it would be appropriate this week, maybe next week. It's made me think of a possible line of questioning that could be interesting. The thing that, other than being the Prince of Darkness, the thing that often people put firmly at his doorstep is that he invented heavy metal. Is this a correct assertion? That would be one of the questions I'd love to ask the group of people who always join us every week. Everyone's welcome. If you're on the YouTube channel, check out the video description down below and you'll see a Google Meet. You'll often see similar faces and stuff. This isn't an invited clique or cabal. Just jump on, anyone can join in. Just stick a pair of headphones on, mute your microphone, and you'll see, if you're not familiar with Google Meet, right at the bottom of the screen, there's a little hand thing. Just stick your hand up, a queue will form, and everyone kind of contributes, asks questions, answers questions, tells stories, that kind of stuff. So a question to everyone this week is, did Ozzy Osbourne invent heavy metal? And, you know, I spoke with I'd say a very important figure within the music industry, the drummer from Red Hot Chili Peppers, who is a self-proclaimed Anglophile. And his claim was that the UK invented rock. Controversial. I don't know enough about that side of the music industry to really comment, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that. So what else have I got to talk about? Well, I'm in London. We've just relaunched Glass Strings on Crow Hill. If you've got a copy of that already, go to your app and re-download it. There's all sorts of new goodies in there. So check that out and go to thecrowhillcompany.com if you're interested in having a look at it. That's the last time I'm going to try and hawk you anything for the next hour and a half, I promise. Crow Hill is about people getting together, talking about music, creating opportunities through connections, sharing resources and tools. We're not a sample company. We simply, that's how we keep the lights on, so to speak. So if you haven't joined the crowhillcompany.com, grab yourself an account there. It costs absolutely nothing to join, and you'll have access to all sorts of resources, tools, free stuff, the vaults, pocket strings is a tenner. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of new tutorials and stuff. In fact, I'm just working on one about using legatos. So that's what Crow Hill is all about. Join the mailing list too. We won't spam you. Well, maybe just once in a while. But what we will do is let you know of all sorts of exciting things coming up. What I'd love to do is I want to start off with a bit of a story, which will lead on to another question I'd like to ask everyone. But I think for this, I'd love to invite whomever is waiting to join in the Google Meet. Alan, if you can. Alan is still up in Edinburgh, fiddling the doobies and twiddling the la-las. So Alan, I don't know if you can let people in, or Simon, who is moderating. It's good to see Jay there. And I've got to do a little thing that I do when I tick this and adjust view and all of this type of stuff. Legacy, I think that's what it is. Oh, what a lovely group of people. It's lovely to see everyone. I was just saying, I don't know if you caught the beginning, but I was just saying terrible news about Ozzy Osbourne. Wonderful that he managed to get on stage and perform. I think he did something like 9 songs. It's absolutely incredible considering he appears to have been at death's door. But the question I was asking was that a lot of people say that Ozzy Osbourne invented heavy metal. Is this a correct or absurd assertion, or was he merely a contributor? And also that Anglophiles, I'm not saying necessarily Brits, but Anglophiles will often suggest that rock music was invented in the UK. Do we think this is true? Whilst I won't deny that the blues and R&B and rock and roll definitely come stateside, is rock an abomination that the UK made of that cultural phenomenon? I thought I'd cheer us up with a bit of a story that'll lead to a question. It's a fictional story, and it was told by my father-in-law, who I sadly never met. He died many years ago, to his daughter, my wife. And the story goes something like this. It's a pub in the middle of nowhere in the UK, and the circus has come to town. And just before last orders, this guy bursts through the door of the pub, and he's absolutely drenched, but he's also steaming, and he just stinks like piss. So the publican asks him, is it raining outside? He goes, oh no, I'm with the circus and I look after the elephants, and one of them pissed all over me tonight, so I could do with a warm pint. Get served a pint. The following night, very close to last orders again, the doors burst open, and this same guy, although he's barely recognizable, comes to the door, and he's absolutely covered from head to toe in shit. And the publican goes, oh, jeepers, babe, what happened? And jeepers, that smells on the flies. He goes, oh, well, from time to time, the elephants, they'll just completely shit all over you. And actually tonight was a bad one, went in my mouth as well. So I could do with a pint to clear that out. And the publican pours him a pint, calls last orders, and that's that. The last night, just before last orders, the door bursts open, and there's this guy drenched from head to toe, steaming, smelling of piss, covered in shit, of which some is in his mouth, but he's coughing and blood is coming out of his mouth. Now, the publican isn't a physician, but kind of knows internal hemorrhaging when he sees it. So the publican goes, are you all right, mate? And this guy goes, oh, just looking after the elephants, and, normal kind of fare, pissed on me, shout on me. But then once in a while, they get a bit frisky, and this one just kicks me in the stomach. It's quite normal. A pint will sort it out. And the publican goes, sorry, mate, you've been in 3 nights in a row, and I hope it's not out of turn to say this, but have you thought of getting another job? To which the guy retorts, what? Give up show business? So it leads on to my next question, which is, I think that we've all been kicked in the guts and shat on and pissed on. And I think that show business, more than anything, is a war of attrition. I think one of the 2 keys to success is conscientiousness, that willingness and desire to learn from one's mistakes, and to continue to better oneself, and also luck. But luck in I think the truest term, and luck is useless if you can't do anything with it and turn it into something good. But that idea of putting yourself in a position where opportunity eventually avails, and you've put in enough practice to turn that good fortune into good luck. Those, for me, I think are the 2 key components of working in show business. But do we also have to be shat on and pissed on and kicked in the stomach by the elephant overlords? I wonder. And I just thought I'd offer that out to you guys, of what is the thing that keeps us going where everyone else kind of gives up? I don't know about you, but quite often I will go into an accountant's office or a lawyer's office, and I'll see a very expensive Paul Reed Smith guitar or something like that in the corner. I always do the little trick of brushing the strings to see exactly how out of tune it is, because it hasn't been played for years. And I'm sure that we have also felt the slight resentment from people who were probably in bands, probably had a go, but decided to give up, and maybe for good reason. But what was the thing that pinned you and continues to pin you down, even when this industry is incredibly competitive and difficult? That would be my question. And did the UK invent rock? There we go. That's my start for 10. I don't know if anyone wants to come in on that. What's the thing that keeps you going through thick and thin? Hey, Mandy, how are you? Figuring out the mic mute button.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good trick when I've just come off the subject of being covered in elephant shit. It's like, I just can't get this to work.
Yeah. How are you?
How are you doing?
I'm good. I was just in London a couple weeks ago for the first time.
Oh, really? How did you find it?
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. Oh my gosh, I thought it was amazing. So it was really, really cool. And then we were there the day before the French president came, so we saw the whole rehearsal with the carriages and the horses and the band, and it was just really, really cool. So
fantastic. It's something that I really notice when coming down from Edinburgh is the sheer number of people. Was that kind of quite shocking for you?
In London in general,
yeah.
Not so much. We took the Eurostar to Paris for a day. Paris seems much crazier than London. London was, we stayed near Paddington Station. It was, I just loved it. I just like, it was so nice. So everybody was so friendly. So it was nice.
Fantastic. I was born in a hospital in Paddington, next to Paddington Station. Oh. So there you go.
Okay,
it's lovely to see you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you.
Pavel, you've got your hands up. How are you doing, sir?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. Sorry for the noise in the background. I was just I thought of the response for what keeps me going. I don't have really anything much to say about the rock and roll invented by I don't really have any information about this kind of music, but yeah, there's two things that keeps me going, I think. One of them is that I kind of know that I would suck doing anything else. That's maybe the main reason, but mostly because I've been extremely lucky to basically work with people that I just, that there's always some kind of connection, or at least it's trying to be there. And I just find it really inspiring when I'm working with someone who, is maybe as lost as I am, but we kind of try together to figure things out. And that's just such a good feeling, to be on this journey together with someone else.
Oh, that's brilliant. And Pavel, I really relate to your comment about sucking at anything else. I think I always doubted that my imposter syndrome was virulent. Doubted that I could actually do this job that I'd wanted to do since I was 5 years old. But for me, it was quite interesting. It was when I became a dad. I just went, well, fuck, I've got nothing else I can do. I was earning a bit of money out of music at that point, and went, well, you can't start afresh now. So I felt it in many ways. That was the point at which I kind of got locked down, and I guess had to take it seriously from a point of view of just saying I'm a film and TV composer and believing it, and accepting that I might be a bit of a shit one, but I just had to, kind of be the journeyman that I've always been, and just, make ends meet with that choice of profession. So very much relate to you. Jeremiah, how are you doing? The coffee's better in London than Edinburgh, I have to say. Jeremiah, you've got your hand up, but we can't hear you. There you go, mate. No.
Can you hear me there? Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm here in the interior. So if I cut in and out, it may be not as consistent as usually at home. Keeping me going, it's an interesting thing, as you said, with bands, you know, they can get things can get contentious and strange, and for me, being in bands in my early 20s, I'm still very young, but you make a lot of mistakes, and
hey Jeremiah, we might have to give up on this. It's not really working at our end.
Through those mistakes and taking a break away from music, like,
sorry, mate.
In a
hey Jeremiah,
professional sense.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, mate.
I came back to it because it's the most satisfying than creating a picture for somebody that they have to put together.
Fantastic, Jeremiah. I get the sense that you're massively delayed, but thanks for making an effort. I'm also very curious to find out what you mean by the interior. It sounds like something out of like Logan's Run or something. But Merlin's waiting to come in. How are you, Merlin?
Hey everybody, hey Chris. I'm good, thanks. I have to say I agree with you. I'm also now massively intrigued what the interior is. First of all, I wanted to thank you, Christian, on your tip of the most recent Muse single that is little related to the rock question. I had no idea it came out, and I just had to listen to it earlier, and I was like, I'm not as good an engineer to understand how something like that is done, but I know enough about mixing to be equally impressed as what you suggested. It's a fabulous song, and like, yeah, I'm like, wow, that must have been an interesting job to mix that, make it sound the way it does, given like what they're going in and out and like, you know, style-wise, sound-wise. It's just like a crazy piece of music. And a beautiful piece of art, in my opinion. But yeah, in terms of did the UK invent rock, I think I'm a little too young to really have any opinion on that, because by the time I had a reasonable self-formed opinion of music, rock had been invented for a while already, and so I feel like everything that I know about rock is already from people who are already standing on the shoulders of giants and so on, you know. So it's like the very early inventions of this, I only got some of that through my dad and the music he showed me, and it wasn't really ever something that I invested a ton of time listening into or researching more. But on terms of what keeps me going, I think, well, first off, I want to massively second what Pavel said. And second of all, maybe through a bit of a self-inflicted situation, but I feel like what keeps me going is also what is the constant source of struggle for me, because it's sort of love and a dream of something that I think can exist, but that doesn't, at least yet, consistently exist for me in this line of work. Like I could not possibly at this point like pay all my bills and support my family purely from musical work, so I'm not in that same position. But from my standpoint, I have this self-inflicted rule of I only work on jobs with people I like or want to find out if I like them, and I only take jobs that I'm genuinely excited about. I don't do any gigs that are quote unquote, either cash grabs or they don't align with my ideology, or I'm just not interested. Like it's like maybe I could do it. I think I have the skill set for a lot of things that I turn down because I don't feel like it in a sense. Like, if it doesn't get me up in the morning, if it doesn't get me excited, very much like what you recently said, Christian, I don't think it's going to lead me to making good work. But if there is somebody that I'm excited to work with, it doesn't matter what they want, because I can learn whatever it is and have the enjoyment of, again, what Pavel said, creating something really cool together with somebody or with a community or with a project or whatever. And to me, that's what has pulled me back from saying I'm done with music as on a professional level several times already. That somebody came and was like, oh, could you maybe make an exception and just get on this thing? And well, as soon as you start again, it's it's like a bad habit. It's like once you smoke the first cigarette again, you're a smoker again. Just that I think in terms of music, it possibly maybe slightly bit healthier. That's debatable though.
Oh, I know. I think doing music's definitely healthier than smoking, being a former smoker myself. I totally agree with you. And I think where like career cadence is concerned, or your career path, I think it's almost like different velocity curves. I think there's different ways you can do it. And I think people who get, well, I've yet to meet someone who's like an overnight success. I don't think it really happens in our line of work. And even if someone just like hits the scene and is the biggest thing, you'll usually find that there's a heck of a lot of work that's gone into getting there. But I do think that whilst your route may be a slower cadence, I suspect it will lead to greater heights. And if there's one thing I don't necessarily regret, but I really am an IMDb defecator, in the sense that I've had wonderful times when my IMDb page looks very, very smart, and then I'll accept a job that just shits all over it and makes me look like a dodgy journeyman. So I think that's kind of always kept me in the kind of journeyman league, as opposed to who go, oh, who we need is that guy. If you look at someone like Olafur Arnalds, he's incredibly passionate about the work that he takes. And, I always say, Hans Zimmer did Going for Gold, which was a particularly cheesy kind of theme tune to a quiz show. But he didn't accept Richard Hammond's Blast Lab after getting
Christian?
Oscar nomination for Rain Man.
I think I sometimes wonder really, because much like Pavel said, it's like I have done other kinds of work, but I can never imagine myself being, in a quote unquote regular job. I don't think I could possibly do that. And we've on the podcast several times talked about neurodivergence and similar things. I wonder if that is a factor, because I think it's, let me just say, even if we don't call it neurodivergence, but there's a heck of a lot of creatives who are different in some way. Let's put it like that. And I think that's good, and that's how it's supposed to be. But I think that's also maybe in part why we can't do what other people can do, and they maybe can't do what we do, So I think maybe it's great that your IMDb page looks that way, because it shows that that's what you want to do. It's probably the image that you can be proud of in the end. And if you had a very slick and curated page, you would have not done a lot of jobs that you really would have liked to do. So
yeah, and I think because I am neuro weird, that that's probably not the right word for it, but I'll just give myself that label. I think that variety is the spice of life and all that. Master of nothing but jack of all trades. It's given me, I did a video that I heard this seminar about bees and how 20% of the hive just don't play by the rules whatsoever. But the return on investment is greater with those, is because they actually go out and scout and find stuff. And I do think that if we were to compare ourselves to a hive, we are often the people who want to kind of take the risks and go on the adventures and scout out new avenues, which is why there's a new thing that I've come across, and I don't know if anyone here suffers from it. PDA, pathological demand avoidance. And that's a little bit of a flag as well, that we might be these scouting bees. I don't know if you have this, but if someone says to me, you should really watch this, I just don't want to anymore, because I want to find my own honey. I don't want to be spoon-fed. And I think that is fundamental to the mindset of a lot of creatives, is they want to discover. They don't want to be handed stuff on the plate. I particularly hate it when it's a movie that's in a foreign language, because people say, oh, you've got to watch it, but they always do this with their head. Oh, you've got to see it. I don't know what it is about a movie that's in French. Have you seen Je me fais le malheureux? No, I haven't. Oh, you must. Anyway, Jay, how are you?
Good, good. I flipped my studio over. As you can see, I have a window now because it's like flipped over. You know what's funny talking about French films? My girlfriend is Swiss, so her dad speaks French. They speak French, a lot of French, and I've been in a position where I seem to maybe should be starting learning French, which means probably should start watching French films, which I'm not happy about because I don't want to do that. However, got derailed because ADHD. Since we opened the can of worms of being neurodivergent, I don't think I could do anything other than music because, and I'm gonna get into everything in 2 seconds. ADHD, for real. Here's the thing: I worked customer service for a couple of years while I was like, when I came back from LA to Guatemala, rebuild my studio, blah blah blah. It was brutal, dude. It's the having to go to this place and sit there for 8 hours is the worst possible experience that I could have in my life, because I cannot be sitting like that doing something that boring for so long. And I know a lot of you guys are thinking like, yeah, I can see myself not being able to sit in an office, but when you sit in your studio, time does not exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that I went through 27 different things that I wanted to do when I was a kid. And the one thing that I still do to this day, 20 years later, is music.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I never ever dropped. And my dad told me one time, was like, when he first got me my first instrument, he's like, I will buy this for you, but you cannot drop it. You can't like just play with it for 3 months and then leave it lying around there. And I think he regrets that decision, because here we are 20 something years later, and it's, that's kind of what keeps me going, is the fact that I'm useless at anything else. Like, because I have ADHD, I cannot possibly be interested in anything else to that depth that I would do it. And now, for reasons that I don't even understand myself, I don't get hired. Like, even if I try to go back to a customer service job, I don't get hired. So it's like, no, you just have to make this work because you have to make this work. It's the end of it. Like, at this point, there's no other option.
Yeah.
At least for me, and I'm pretty sure for like many, sometimes it's like, you know what, there's nothing else that I could possibly do.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to, but just because I cannot possibly do it. Also, speaking about heavy metal, I would say maybe on the Aussie thing, because Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, they all came out around the same time. And if you want to get really technical, like historically speaking, Judas Priest invented heavy metal because they called it heavy metal from the start. But then again, Black Sabbath is around the same years. Did Ozzy invent heavy metal? No. But I think the same way Rob Halford put the leather and the spikes into it, he put the extreme behavior into heavy metal with the bat and everything. that's my take on Aussie.
Well, thanks for that, Jay. I also did a spell in customer. Well, would refer to it as customer disservice. Early days of Spitfire, Paul and I would do the customer service inquiries, and people used to comment on this online and say, it's amazing that these two guys, they're composers, they're making these samples, and they're handling all of the customer service. And then people go, yeah, but make sure you get Paul, not Christian. And eventually got to a point where I think I said to someone, don't be such a fucking mong. And which is really very politically incorrect. And I got barred from being customer service representative. Glad I'm not doing that with Crow Hill as well, because it is, as I say, a customer disservice. I wanted to pick up on something you said, Jay. And when talking about luck, when talking about privilege, that kind of stuff, a lot of people profile me because my mother kind of rammed into me that I've got to speak proper, even though I went to a very rough school. And, there were points where my mum was like, would make our own clothes and stuff like that. But I would still consider myself to be highly privileged and highly lucky because I had parents who supported me in for pursuing the arts. And this is completely classless thing, there are people who don't get that support at all. People who are from really, smart backgrounds and stuff, who don't get that support. And I think without it, it's very, very, very difficult, because we all know that it's a perennial war against kind of confidence and your own self-assurance and all of that kind of stuff. So I think to get support of a parent or a teacher or a community member or another musician, I think that is the luck. That a lot of us, and all of the successful people I've met, they will always mention someone else's name, and it will usually be another composer. So I think that I just wanted to pick up on that, Jay, because it's not something that's spoken about that often. My parents bought me a Casio CZ1000. It's like,
I was very lucky that my mom played piano, so I've always had a piano at home, which I have not sampled, but I will eventually when I get it, because my grandparents inherited it to me. My mom was a musician. My dad he's tone deaf. He cannot clap on beat to save his life. However, he did support me. Like, he paid for me to go to LA and study. When I came back and during COVID, I took a couple of online courses. He was very happy to pay for them. He has never denied me education.
Yeah.
And even though he does not understand what I do or like how I live, but he always supported me that way. So I've definitely been very privileged.
And it's amazing the stories of sacrifice. I hope, Alan, you don't mind me saying, Alan, who produces this, his parents were working class, working out of Glasgow, and just managed to get enough money together to get Alan off to Berkeley for a term, and at huge sacrifice. And it's that kind of belief and support that I think is something that we really shouldn't take for granted. Joe, I'm going to move on to Elijah, because there's a few people waiting who've got their hands up, and I will also shut up. Elijah, how are you?
Hi, good. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, privilege. I think that's a really good point. I think I was privileged as a young kid, just having a piano around, and my mom, my dad sort of encouraging me to explore it and play it. I think since I don't know about everyone else, but I came from like a spiritual background, sort of a Christian home. So you have this religious ideology, and how that relates to my music and what keeps me going is, I thought that I was sort of destined to be a musician, because from a young age, I shown so much promise on the piano, and it kind of caused a lot of problems for me, because when you believe you're determined to be a musician, what's the point of like showing up every day like it's your last day to play music or to write music? So over the years, it's had to change. And what I've seen is that actually I've chosen music, me, myself. I've chosen every day to wake up and to continue writing album after album, song after song. And I think that what's underneath that, and this is going to be a little bit more abstract, less like practical in terms of why I keep going. But I think it's that search for beauty in the art form of music. And I truly believe, like, if, say, like, theoretically reincarnation is a real thing, uh, in another life, I would probably be searching for beauty through like another art form if it wasn't music, relentlessly, whether it be filmmaking or painting or whatever. And it's this beauty that, and for some people that word's more subjective or objective. For me, it's a little bit of both. But the beauty enriches my life, and it connects me to the things in my life that more than any large sum of money could ever do. Now, don't get me wrong, we need money. We need to live and have a livelihood, but it's really is the beauty that is worth sacrificing for, sacrificing a more prosperous life economically, to live a more creative lifestyle that connects us to, like you said, love, connection, relationship. And I unfortunately haven't had many peers throughout my life, or many in-person collaborators, both in music and in film. I have had some great ones online, though. But I also do it because I know that someday I have hope that I will meet people and more people, and those collaborations will be uh, priceless, and they'll go beyond just what we make at the end of the day, at the end of the session. It will be about the time that we shared as human beings, creating things that never quite existed in the way that they had before we made it. And I think that's a beautiful thing to live for. And it really just connects me to the life that I live as a human being. And so I'm throwing out a lot of abstract sort of ideas and words, but that's just kind of how I feel and why I keep going. Because I'm not in a position where I'm like, uh, in a career sense, like very predisposed for success. I don't know many successful people who could say, bring me up and mentor me. But I'm just, I take my music very seriously and very personally. And so that's what I know more of. And I'll keep pushing, so the career stuff will follow and more career things will build up. Because I know that it will pay off, and I will probably look back and be grateful that I pursued that instead of just being safe and financially secure every moment of my life, which it's not a way that I want to live.
No, well said. And I mean, surely some of the most beautiful music in the 500-600 year canon is the music of pain.
Great.
What it does is it represents love, but it's a great transferal of energy from that pain. The music that always stops me in my tracks is Armenian folk music. When someone whips out a duduk, you just go, oh my God, some shit went down in that part of the world. But it's amazing how you can turn, if it was represented visually, it would be grotesque.
Right.
But that it can be turned into this thing of extraordinary beauty that makes us feel is an extraordinary thing. Thanks for that, Elliot. Jeremiah, how are you?
Hey, yeah, I think you could probably hear me better now.
What's the interior? What's the interior?
Yeah, right. I say it because I'm here and people know, but anywho, I forget. The interior is just like the rest of not like a metropolis of British Columbia, Canada. So like all of the forest and small towns and things. I'm here visiting my partner's in-laws. So we're just having a good old time for this week out here in the wilderness, so to speak. I mean, it's a town, but it's a very small town. Yeah.
In the upside down.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry about that issue earlier. That was kind of cringy, I imagine, but we'll reflect on it later and laugh. So I kind of wanted to just throw my 2 cents at this thought of what keeps you kind of propelled in this career path. And I resonate with a lot of what's already been said, so I won't like repeat it, but I remember being in my early 20s, which was not that long ago, of course, and making a lot of mistakes in bands and being in these contentious situations and in relationships and touring and not knowing how to feed yourself or take care of yourself and learning how to be an adult all the same, and still doing it and still thinking that I want to do this, I want to make it work, anything I can do to have these moments, have these experiences. And I think the one thing that especially perpetuated through that period, and even of course into now and into the future, I think is just this hope that I can give other people something to think about. You know, like it's maybe a little bit self-indulgent, self-righteous or something like that, but I feel like the things that Elijah said resonate with me just the same, where growing up in working class, maybe religious house, those things are part of me. And we don't get to see all of the sacrifices that our parents made. Sometimes they just happened. And they, you know, my parents weren't super smart with a couple things here and there, but they really cared about being generous people that wanted me to go through all of the education that they could put me through. And that just sometimes was just drum lessons when I was a teenager. And you know, so I think just one thing I'll just sum up this is sharing an experience with somebody in a live setting, especially, or at home, whatever you can, and hopefully giving them something to think about and remember. And when I play live as a drummer, and I'll do some here and there, I'm sure in the future, I'm extremely expressive. And that's one thing. I never wanted to be very great. I just wanted to give someone something. And I found my expression playing, standing up, hitting the cymbals, running around on stage, being a drummer was the best part of it. And I would come after the show and have people talk to me and here and there, and they'd be like, that was fucking awesome. Like when your mouth was just agape that whole song and you're just like reaming on the cymbal, or, you know, like that pattern, your polyrhythms or whatever, that was just so thrilling. And I've made some of the best connections that way. And I think I love those moments. I don't know. I think that just moves into everything that keeps me going is that constant feedback and giving. I love giving, and that's just wonderful.
Yeah, I think that it's so easy to forget that music is a sharing thing. Elliot, how are you? It's lovely to see you, mate.
I'm good, thank you. Good to see everyone. Hope everyone's okay. Yeah, one of the kind of carrying on from like things that keep you going is I've found that I know I've never got bored of learning, and I find in music there's so much you can learn, and it's like it's the only thing really that I've ever done where it's like the only way you know you've got it right is you get like a feeling. Like it's a weird feeling to try and describe, but like you kind of your hair stand up on end and you kind of know like, oh, I've done that. And it's so hard to articulate to someone who doesn't understand that feeling in music. And I've only ever really been able to kind of convey it to someone who I've been in a band with or something like that, when we've done something and it's just been right. And you look around, you haven't got to say anything to each other, but you just kind of know that it's like, that was it. That was one of those moments that you search for. And yeah, just the ability to keep learning, I find. And also something that I've done recently, I've been doing it for a little while now, but I've been helping out one of my music teacher when I was at school. Is a head of music at a school locally to me. And for the last 2 years or so, I've been going in and helping her with the technology side of the school. So showing the kids how to use Logic, how to use MuseScore and all this kind of stuff. And that slowly morphed into me helping do a cover band with them. Like, some of the kids are genuinely really good musicians, and kind of like, I know it's a weird thing giving out knowledge that you've acquired back to people. And just the reason I wasn't here last week is they had their school end of year concert, and seeing those kids up on stage putting into practice techniques that I've shown to, like, tried to teach them, is so rewarding, and it gives so much validation for life choices. Because I'm sure, as most people can agree with, as a musician, you're inherently poor. It's the name of the game. And you often look at your friends and social circles and think, oh, well, they've got this and they've got that, and I'm struggling with this and that. But to see someone else benefit from knowledge that you've given them, it kind of gives validation to your life choices. And I wasn't expecting that last week at all. And it was, so rewarding to see your knowledge help someone else. And then the messages you get off the kids being like, best teacher I've had and all this kind of stuff, it's really nice. It's really nice one. I recommend for anyone, if you want to test yourself that you know something, try and teach it to someone else, because not only does it, well, I found it's really beneficial for different things, but also it really tests that you do know that knowledge, because you have to learn how to articulate it to someone else, and it just cements that knowledge in your head as well.
It's a lovely way of finding out that you haven't been completely fucking wasting your time. Sorry, it says the Grinch. No, I think Elliot, it's something that I've experienced, and apparently it's very common that you get a bit older and you actually develop a desire to pass it on. And I think there's probably something Darwinian in that. But music is a continuum. We don't start from scratch. It's this story that we're all taking on, and we do need to pass it on. So well said to you, sir. Saman, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah.
How are you?
I'm all right. Hope you are fine too. Well, it's interesting because an hour before the podcast, I was just thinking about this question, somehow not exactly the same, but I was thinking that how would you guys deal with these things, not to give up. And because personally for me is like, the struggling itself somehow maybe inspire me, or I don't know, motivate me. Maybe it's wrong, because I've never been like that, I'm done with music, because as Elliot mentioned, there's always lots of things to learn about. So that's one of the things I think makes me keep going, to learn more. And the other thing is, I think you have the interview with Steve Mazzaro, that, making connections is so important. And I was really bad at it as an introvert person. So during the last couple of years, I tried to, make more connection with the musicians or producers or whatever. And this is somehow what makes me keep going, because being a full-time musician is a hard thing. And for me, I try to find another ways. That's why I entered these post-production things, like sound design, recording, mixing, dialogue edit, whatever. But I've never give up, because I think learning and meeting and making connections might lead to something, that I've never sure about it. But the problem for me was that this is struggling all the time to how to deal with it, because you don't know, maybe it's never gonna happen. That's the dark side of it. But try to deal with it somehow. I'd like to know how you guys deal with it.
Yeah, I'm an incredibly shy person, believe it or not, and I put a big act on. I completely agree with you, and I think that it holds so many people up. And I think one of the things that once you do meet people, particularly people who are hugely successful, you will realize they're exactly the same. I'm going to name drop a couple of people, but I think it's fair to say, you know, whenever I've met Hans Zimmer, I've never met someone who is so uncertain about their own talents and impact. I was really surprised when I met Matt Bellamy from Muse. I mean, if you see this guy's onstage persona, he is like, he's a god.
Yeah.
The most awkward person I've ever met. And again, I would say that to his, I mean, really awkward. But what I find very interesting is the minute you start talking about music, particularly technology, suddenly, you know, we're all speaking the same language. And as Elliot, I think you pointed out, I think it was you, Elliot, it's an extraordinary profession because it's one where Matt Bellamy will learn from you. We will all look over each other's shoulders when we're using our doors and go, how the fuck do you do that? I remember the first day I worked with Anne Dudley, third name drop in one breath, that, you know, she said, oh, that's interesting. Why did you do it that way? And, you know, I was a total junior to her, you know, she just won an Oscar and stuff. And I think that it is something that you do actually have to overcome. And I just, whenever I go into these situations, I just go, it'll be over. But also, I think I've mentioned this before, it's the and what. The and what game is a great one. And that is, you're like, so what if it goes wrong? And what will happen? And what will happen? And what will be the result of that? Nothing. I think we're all a little bit like people who are scared of going into the sea because of the film Jaws. I think a lot of us are scared because of that film or that book, Oliver fucking Twist, being laughed at with the bowl. Don't ask, give, and then everything falls into place. Iago, and then I'll come to you, David. People have had their hands up for a long time. Iago, speaking from the interior of Brazil.
Yeah. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yeah, can I just caveat this with apologies for not responding to your messages. I have had a killer week this week on Crow Hill, and I will reply to your messages soon.
Don't
but
worry.
Thank you so much for what you have done. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm going to do some comments on all of this. Elijah commented on privilege, and I'm going to start by that. I grew up in and through Brazil doing stuff. My situation was and is, I'm an introvert as well, still today. My situation was tough in a sense that my dad doesn't exist, so I didn't have anyone to be this figure that helps or anything. My mother worked 10 hours a day as a teacher with minimum wage. I was the first person in 20,000 people city in the middle of enough in Brazil to record or produce songs of places nearby and to learn. So I needed to learn, and I had nothing, nobody to do this near me. So what I did was I kind of noticed I needed to get out of there. So things were happening in my life through sacrifices they all have. I dropped college. I did computer science. I dropped in the last semester, traveled to São Paulo, got a gig in Rio, then went to Uruguay, then went to Argentina, then started doing this for a year without having places to sleep or do anything that made my life complete in a way. Like slept to like next to dogs, basically, because there was not any place to do stuff. But I did all of this since the beginning, and I would do 100% all over again, because I cannot do anything but music anyway. So the only thought that went on my head in 4 years was, I need to push through. I need to push through. That's the only option for me. You know, I did not mention that on the when we going up the Crow Hill, but like I saved for a year to do that. So I don't know if you guys are following me. Like I don't have almost anything in my life, and I don't need to have anything in my life. As soon as I can have a way of recording, mixing, being with people, talking to you guys. You know, Elliot said rewarding knowledge, helping people is one of the greatest things in the world, and I totally agree that And matter of fact, I'm making reviews in Portuguese of Grow Hill videos. So trying to help the Portuguese people, speaking Portuguese people to be part of this, to feel the same way. So I don't know if this is small thing or big thing, but I'm trying to help anyway. And this is all that matters.
Thank you, Iago. That's it's just very eloquently put and wonderful. As many of you know, that I'm in recovery, and something that people talk about a lot in the meetings that I go to is that for some people, alcohol is like an allergy. It's like you become very addicted and all of this kind of stuff. And I think on a more positive note, I think that for people who have music in them, there's something that happens that is almost hallucinogenic. And I think it is, again, talking about this like 10% of the hive, I think that there is a different wiring to people. And, dare I say it, where music's concerned, sometimes I do turn my back on it. And when I go back, it's like chasing that high. I've had a spell of not really writing a huge amount because Crow Hill has been so busy. And I just did this legato test and came up with a piece of music, and I just kind of went, oh God, this is why. It's that fire. It's inexplicable, but it's not the same for everyone. It really isn't. David, over to you, and sorry for keeping you waiting so long.
No, it's been very fascinating to hear. I'm going to have to be very blunt about it, to hear people considerably younger than me being so dialed into something that took me decades to understand myself. And Elliot, the experience you had with teaching and students, like I have that now a lot. I'm involved in a lot of projects that are, let's say, the catalyst is music. One is working with formerly incarcerated people. We're going to be at the Newport Jazz Festival, actually, which is very exciting for them. And it's music that's brought me to that. But if you asked me in my 20s, would I be doing something like that? I would probably have said, it's a really good person that does that type of thing. But, I'm too busy with my own career trying to be the hotshot jazz guitar player who, if I'm being frank, was hoping whoever came before me would hurry their solos up so I could play mine, and then somewhere along the way, you turn into a person who's enjoying their solos more than the one you've yet to play. And you're enjoying playing behind them. And so there's an evolution that kind of happens. And it's very emotional for me to hear what you guys have shared there, and Christian articulated by, maybe it's some Darwinian thing that happens to you as you get older. But I'm now convinced that music actually, when I play, it's a bit different when I write because you're handing it off to somebody or you're going to conduct it yourself. But when I play, it's coming out from me, going out. And it's never more obvious than when you think you're not playing well and having a terrible night, and somebody comes up to you and said, the moment you played your first note, I've been having a lot of difficulties and you just got me right there. And in my early days, I used to say, oh no, it couldn't have been me. I'm terrible tonight. I'm screwing everything up. Until one person said to me, you need to learn how to take a compliment. I was talking to you from my heart and you're making me feel like an idiot for telling you sounded good, but the whole thing of teaching, I used to consider that a necessity to pay my bills. That it wasn't until I began to see how I connected with young children via the music and external sources like coaching sports, where I learned some tricks by going to courses. I remember hearing about sandwiching, and I don't know if that's a term that you might call it something else there, but before you critique something, preface it by something they're doing well. And then when you critique, you might say, well, I noticed you got lost on the changes there, but I really like how you got out of it and finished strong. And it became an exercise for me that now all of a sudden I'm listening for things that I like. And you look at the face of a young student who's already terrified until they get to know you, and you tell them, man, I really like your tone. You know, and it's from the heart because you've listened for something good. So I want to thank you, Elliot, for being more mature than I certainly was. You look a lot younger than me, and the impact that you're going to have on people throughout your life, having this awareness so early on. And Christian, the very fact that you host this, there's a sharing component to what you do. You have an abundance of knowledge in a whole lot of areas, and I hope you know how much it means to all of us that you do something like this. I'll stop talking now, but I found today very moving, I have to say.
Thanks, David. No, it's it's a total honor being a part of this, and it's it's what it's what I enjoyed when I was working at Spitfire, and it's what I wanted to continue because in many respects, what happened to me was I had a bad experience with a teacher who said just one thing. He said, well, and you're not going to like this, David. He said, what you're going to learn on my course is that jazz is for children. And I was 18 at the time, and he just threw me into a tailspin, and I became a baker for 3 years, gave up music. And I just, I lament when people, it's extraordinary how many people I went to school with who were brilliant at art, and they all fucking hated art. And it's brilliant. And it's amazing how many people I went to school with who were great at music, and they all hated studying music. And I just think that needs to change when people actually have a passion and are connecting and aren't standing on a fucking street corner scoring drugs. Why would you say these things to people? It's absolutely infuriating. And I've since learned that I'm dyslexic and I can't learn that way. I've got to learn by doing and making mistakes and all of that kind of stuff. And music is ideal for that. But this twat, it was amazing because I eventually, this twat completely forgot that he taught me, completely forgot. And it was a one-on-one kind of masterclass that I was doing with him. And one day I suddenly walked into a room, and it was an Ivan Novello committee, and he was there. And I sat next to him, and he didn't know who I was, but he was like, oh my God, I'm in the room with Darth Vader, the man who nearly fucked it for me. And anyway, when you do these things for the Ivan Novellos, you get a free seat. So I'd also been nominated that year, so I invited my wife along. I don't think my wife will mind me saying that she doesn't drink. And we sat down, and she got sat next to this "See you next Tuesday." He kept on trying to pour my wife a drink, and she went, "No, I really don't want to. I don't drink." And he just turned to me and went, "Cheap date, hey, Henson." And you're just like going, "Oh God, I always knew you were a twat." Talk about misreading the situation. Anyway, that's me going off on a tangent. But I think it's, it's important. You're absolutely right about, you put it more politely, about the shit sandwich. It's about finding the good. I found it early on when I started working with mix engineers, and I'd come in and listen to my music and just go, oh my God, it's all fucked. And you just kind of go, actually, well, listen to what's good about it. And is it all fucked? Or is it maybe that the jazz guitar is a bit loud? And it's always that. Lustin, how are you? I don't believe we've spoken before. Yes, we have.
Ciao. Can you
Ciao.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the idiot that 2 weeks ago said that you remember,
Yeah.
40 years old. Thank you for the, yeah. It was shocking what you said right now about the, yeah, shocking. Yeah, it was. Anyway, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for doing the fellowship. It's extraordinary. Regarding everybody, all the stories that I heard, I will try to be short. About the story you started about telling about the teacher that, well, I was raised in like you, with the father who is a famous actor, let's say, close to you and all that. I was raised in the theater. I'm also an actor, also a violinist, and my ego goes far away. Anyway, so in that period, I also experienced everything, which I think, because you said about the twats, right? That don't give a shit about music and don't give about that. I wanted to say that in my experience, I will explain as short as I can. It's good to experience everything. So I was an alcoholic, drinking in theater at 6 o'clock with the people who make the decor and all that. I was drinking on gigs back in Romania because now I'm living in Czech Republic. I was composing music for church, like Orthodox in my case, with a bottle of whiskey, right? And I was doing canons and all that shit. And I had to cut it. So I left everybody. I left my family. I came with my wife and my daughter, young daughter, 1 year old. Now she's 9, in Czech Republic, in Prague. And what I discovered that is really, really interesting about giving yourself a purpose, right? My daughter didn't have what to eat at a certain point because we left everything behind, right? You had to do something. And first of all, you stop drinking, right? Second of all, you wake up, and then, like Enescu said, Enescu is one of the greatest Romanian composer. Porumbescu is, anyway, about the taste. If your main instrument, like you said to me many interesting things last video, and it took me like 2 weeks to put it on the paper and then try to analyze, because I'm also introvert. I don't think I know any composer that are not. But Enescu said something like this: relax by learning, by work. So in our case, we are musicians, composers, instrumentalists, and all that stuff. Well, if you have a blockage, right, and your instrument is not helping you anymore, it sounds shit, go learn another instrument, right? If that instrument doesn't work, go try another one, and all that. There's so many things that can help you grow. Like, you, for example, if you cannot compose, you make a sample library. If you, right? So there's so many things. If you have the goal, right, in life, and that's something that matters, in my case, my daughter, right? Because I came in Czech Republic like a dickhead, with nothing, zero. I started playing on the streets, it didn't work. I started playing in pubs, it didn't work. And I have a jazz master and I have an university. So, and I also have a diploma of acting. So nothing worked, and I tried everything, right? So at a certain point I said, I have to, let's compose, right? I was playing on the stage, it didn't work. Let's, with the shitty computer, everybody says, man, I need to have, for the Spitfire player, probably you know, you have to have 64 gigs of RAM and the best computer and the best mics. I finally, after 10 years, succeeded to buy 2 Neumanns KM84 so I can buy stereo, right? But everything I've done, because I watched your videos on Spitfire for a long time, and I criticized you in my head, and then there's so many things to say, like how you changed, you know, how you changed, not only for me, because I will not say that you change it, even if you do, but I will keep it straight, but you change for so many. And there are some things that you learn. For example, if you have a mic, you can do everything that you want, and you don't need anything else, right? So many of us believe that if you have a good sample library, you can do all the stuff. No. It's all about the work, and it's all about the goal that you have. I've been teaching. It didn't work. I was paid with 10 euros. It didn't work. I've done so many things. Usually I talk too much and I will try to stop myself. But if you have a goal, a real one, you will succeed. And because I also see Charles there that I watched so many times. I have a saying. My father is coming to Prague tomorrow because I'm going to China, so he's staying with my cat. He has a saying, and I also have it now, that I say to my children: if you don't have a grandpa, or if you don't have no, I don't want to say old person, but if you don't have somebody with experience, buy one. Because if you finally, in my 30s, I believe I succeeded to listen. So if you listen, especially for people with experience, which I'm doing right now, man, you'll go far.
Yep.
Yeah. So I will zip it. Thank you for the.
Thanks, Lustin. Elliot and Jay, I'll come back to you guys, but I just want to skip to some people who haven't spoken yet. Charles, how are you doing, sir? Talk of Charles.
I'm doing well. The whole time that I've been listening to all of this, and I do not know why, I kind of know why. The thing that comes to my mind is Cortez. When he landed, and there was a complacency with his crew, and he said, burn the boats. So they couldn't go back to where they came from. And I think that's kind of what we do as creatives. We reach a point where we might not even sense that we're complacent, but there's a moment where you feel like I've got to not do this anymore, whatever it might be, career-wise or what. I mean, I've had more careers than there are people in this particular conversation, starting out in mechanical engineering of all things. And now you know what I do and what I did, so I'm not going to give that parade. But I just kept thinking, burn the boats, burn the boats. In other words, every day when you wake up, what did I write yesterday? I need to burn the boats on that. I need to, like I'm narrating 5 audiobooks right now. And so what I do in that practice, and this is kind of burning the boats, I'll take a book. I don't care if it's an 8-hour book, finished hours, or a 2-hour book. I will record everything. Won't edit a thing. Just boom, 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 boom. And I put it together as components. And 2 or 3 days ago, I finished the second of a 5-part series for a particular guy. And I had already recorded another book, which was 8 hours long. And I said to my wife, I'm not going to do anything with audiobooks for the next couple of days. And this morning I started editing this one book, which is the 8-hour book. And I realized, I burned the boats, meaning I got completely away from where that particular landfall was, so that when I came back to it, I couldn't go back and do it the same way. So meaning when I recorded it, I would hear it a certain way, if that makes sense. When I came back today and I was doing this one section, which has to do about it's a fiction thing about a real battle called Kings Mountain in North Carolina in the Revolutionary War, I heard it so differently. I had stepped away from yours truly narrating, and I listened to the story. And then as a musician, I thought, I think I'm going to change the cadence of this particular section with respect to the dialogue than when I narrated it the first time, if that makes sense. Kind of like a film editor. And you know about that, Christian, because of your mom. So I'm going to go back to this original premise. I think what we should always do is burn the boats. We should, and you may be doing this well, you actually did do it with Crow Hill. You burned the boats. You just changed the whole business structure. And now we have the new setup, which I adore. So if I have any small letters, sage advice, burn the boats. Just kind of stop what you're doing for a couple of days and just then go back to what you were doing and say, I'm close, but I can't go back to where I came from. It's kind of creative destructionism, if you please. But anyway, that's my thought. I just, everybody who was talking today just made me think what they really are saying is, I want to burn the boats. I want something new. But the way to burn the boats is you take a little break and then you realize, I'm here now. Whatever happened before is completely irrelevant. Thank you very much.
Here, here, Charles. And whatever you do, don't burn them on Twitter. Moy, over to you, sir. I saw you having a little look at our shop.
Yeah, I finally, it's back, right? So you know I'm gonna buy everything, right? So you watch out. I'm gonna spend all my money. I just, my problem, right? I have this compulsion of buying everything. But anyways, no, today has been really inspiring because it reminds me of Handel. Handel, he was about to give up, and they knocked on his door and asked him to do the Hallelujah, Handel's Hallelujah, right? So, and I think all of us, we have struggles. People have struggles with alcohol. I had struggles with depression. I was depressed for many years, and my escape was only music. That's all I had, right? And to see people here, Charles, with your amazing voice, you have an amazing voice, and to see people coming here and then sharing what's the most important for them is to work with music and never give up. I've met very famous music producers. These people were millionaires and they've lost everything. They ended up on the street, homeless. Some of them gave up their careers, went to be cook. They went to be great cooks, right? But I think what's most important is the fact that you should never give up. You find what you have the most dear in your life. For me, what I have the most dear is my family. And by the way, I told my mom and my sister about the George Clooney story. They had the greatest laugh, and now they watch. They're probably watching right now. They have to police everything I say. So, today's been great listening to you guys. Everybody has a different advice, and I'm grateful for this group that we have. We can come here every week and share experiences.
Brilliant. Thank you, Moy. Ben, I'll come to you, and then probably we'll have to call it a day. And Mark, we'll speak to you next week. But Ben, how are you?
Hi. Yeah. Well, thank you. Just quick on Charles about Enan Cortez. There was that thing at the end where he was under the tree after everything had failed, and he said, "Oh well, let's just go home." And when I heard that explained to me, I loved that. Life goes on. You go through all these adversaries and challenges, and you just, okay, let's just pick up and move on to the next thing. But just very quickly, Christian, about what you did in Spitfire versus Crow Hill, that's been touched on. Did you have this idea of kind of connection and engagement with your audience and your participants in the industry? And has Crow Hill been kind of a bit of a spur to do this type of thing? Has it been something that's been in you for a while? I just was curious about where that started, germinated, and where it's going in the future as well.
Yeah, it was one moment, and there's been many kind of highs and stuff, and I remember Gary Newman smiling at me when I played him a sound at NAMM. That was a bit of a moment. And I have to admit that the thought that immediately went through my head was, that's why you never smile. He's got quite an awkward smile. But actually it was a composer walk. It was before lockdown, I think. It was an amazing turnout, and we went up to it was in California, went up to the observatory in LA. I came down, and this guy came up to me, and without profiling, but I think we all do, it's natural to us. He was as far away from me from a kind of geographical, socioeconomic. He was dressed a bit like a gangbanger. I don't think he had a tear on his thing, but he looked like he'd seen some stuff. He looked like he came from a really rough part of real estate. He was very, very tall, quite an imposing figure. He wasn't the same race as me. And he came up to me and he goes, I just want to thank you because I've become an orchestral composer. And I said, oh, that's wonderful news. He goes, well, I saw you on YouTube, doing this thing. And I thought, oh, I'd never be able to do that. And then you produced this thing, the BBC Discover thing. And I thought I'd get it and just give it a go. And then there was this pause and I went, it's actually fucking easy, isn't it? And he went, yes. And he goes, but now when people ask me what I do, I say to them, I'm an orchestral composer. And then he told me about his life and how I profiled him was that far off the mark. And the impact on him and on me was just so utterly profound. And I think that there is something about getting to a certain age where you can go, well, I can make a bit of a difference, really. And I do think musical's a wonderful thing. I think it's a wonderful escape. I think it's a better escape than drugs and other sex and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm being a bit kind of bit plain speaking here. So it was something that I wanted to do. Whilst I won't go into details about Spitfire, it was a very, very big operation. And I became saddened that spirit possibly wasn't going to continue. I don't know what they're up to now, but it was certainly what I got the most out of the Spitfire experience, and I just didn't want to stop that. It's something that I found really today. Actually, if you guys want to go online, if you go online and go former Armenian restaurant, Edinburgh, pump house, police station, you'll find a property that's for sale. And we went to view it. I wasn't actually there, I was in London, but we went to view it with view to it becoming the Crow Hill HQ. And I'm just so utterly determined to have a place where we can open doors and bring people in. And it's you change people's lives for the better. I think it's I don't know. I just think it's not a kind of a narcissism thing. It's just a human thing to be able to feel that you could have some form of impact by kind of fiddling around with computers since I was 15. I don't know. That's what's spurred me on. I think it's really exciting. And also, I clearly hold a grudge against that See You Next Tuesday who told me that jazz was for children, and I want to get back at him hardcore. So that's where I sit.
I know you to wrap up.
Sorry, no, carry on, Ben.
So how do you see the future kind of proliferating of businesses engaging with people in their community? Is there a future that you'd like to move it to with Crow Hill?
Yeah, I would like to see people forming more connections. I think, and it was something that I was going to close with today anyway, I think that we need to not hide. We do, as so many people have said, music is about sharing. It's, and going back to prehistory, it was always about coming together and sharing these emotions and feelings and helping dilute our own feelings and emotions through the beauty of music. So I just want it to become bigger. And I think strengthening numbers as well. When I started out, there wasn't really social media. There wasn't really the internet, and it was terribly lonely and quite kind of bad for one's mental health existence, which, considering you're making music, is kind of it's a paradox, really. And I don't think it needs to be like that. And I think we'll be stronger, and we all learn from each other. The piano book thing is something that I've got a massive announcement regarding that as well. So there's lots of things in the pipeline that are very exciting. But also, I have to say that this weekly experience has helped me really focus in on what I need to do with the YouTube channel. You'll notice that we've set up an extras channel, and that's going to be our marketing output. And I'm going to be very protective over the YouTube channel as a place of sharing thoughts, ideas, and the kind of weird experience that I've gathered for myself. So I appreciate the question, Ben. And just to finish up, touching on my own personal experience, my parents were show business. So I was fortunate in the respect that actually, if I was to what they would refer to, which is disgusting, but it's quite funny, is if I was to become a civilian, they would have been horrified. Me going, I think I want to go into accountancy. They would have been totally shocked by that. So they supported me. But what my mother did, which was kind of, I think, really brilliant, was she never let me give up. That didn't mean that she forced me to practice. She didn't put me off doing it. On the few occasions that I said, I want to pack in my piano lessons, I want to give up the piano, she would just fire questions to me that were really supportive of, like, why would you want to do that? You're really good at this. Whilst you may not be as brilliant as the other students, you have a lot of feeling that you put in, and you've put all of this work in. Why would you throw that away? And she just would, I guess she'd just talk me down in the way that, when someone's about to jump off a cliff, you don't go, get the fuck down from there. It's like, okay, let's talk you down. And I, really, really appreciate her for that. And I've spoken to quite a lot of people who were forced into music and were forced to practice, and it had just as much of a negative effect as the See You Next Tuesday that I, had to put me off music and made a baker out of me. So I just wanted to share that. And just one final point, we've been touching on mental health and stuff, and I know this is a kind of a recovery thing, but I've learned this thing that I do think is really, really helpful. I'm probably going to make a video about it, and it's this thing called HALT, which is hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And if you're feeling down, and it goes back to what Charles was saying about burning those boats and stuff like that, is just ask yourself, are you hungry? And if you are hungry, stop what you're doing and eat something. Are you angry? If you're angry, you should probably get out. Go and meet some people, socialize, do a bit of exercise. If you're lonely, exactly the same thing. Pick up the phone, join us on this podcast. And if you're tired, no matter what the deadline is, fucking go to bed. And I'll leave it at that. HALT. HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Just ask yourself that. I think it's something that I've been doing recently, and it really does help me. On that note, I've really, really enjoyed today. It's been utterly moving. I share your feelings there, David. And long may it continue. And I look forward to seeing you same time, same place next week. Love to you all. Take care.
If you feel like you are losing your grip, might suffer a trip or abandon ship, open a can of whatever you sip and join the fellow